Come with me back in time to the year 1988. The music is loud, the leather pants are tight, and the only thing bigger than the wall of Marshall stacks on stage is the hair on the groupies. Hard rock band Van Halen scores their second consecutive #1 record with the album OU812. Now they're headlining the biggest heavy metal rock music festival of the decade. Which is why for this special Halloween episode, we ain't talking about love, but we are talking about the Kramer Monsters of Rock guitar. I'm Thom Tran, and this is the show where I go in-depth into my guitar collection and that of my friends to give you all the gear nerdy goodness like specs, pricing, but also the historic and personal stories about these instruments and how they got into our hands. This is the story behind the strings. I am so excited for this episode, but I am not doing the Rod Serling Twilight Zone thing the whole time. This is the very limited edition 1988 Kramer Guitars Monsters of Rock promotional guitar. It was made exclusively as a giveaway to promote the tour that year. Before we get started, as always, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell icon to be notified when I drop a new episode, which is every other Tuesday. Now, when I was planning out this year's episodes, I saw that Halloween 2023 falls on one of those every other Tuesdays, and I could not think of a better guitar to feature for Halloween than the Kramer Monsters of Rock guitar. First, I need to thank Geoff, Leah, and the staff at 5 Star Guitars in Beaverton, Oregon for making this happen. More on them later. As always, let's start with the specs. The Monsters of Rock guitar was based on the Kramer Beretta 2 model, a solid body electric guitar in the Super Strat style of the very shreddy 1980s. It's covered in a distinctive Monsters of Rock graphic done for the 1988 tour, featuring the giant lizard monster from the poster swinging a red star-looking guitar with the Van Halen logo emblazoned over the tour name. It's got a bolt-on neck with 22 frets and a 25.5-inch scale. The neck is maple with a rosewood fingerboard. The very cool inlays are small Kramer hockey stick headstocks instead of dots or the popular shark tooth inlays of the time. And the 12th fret has a large headstock inlay that says Kramer on it. Now the neck profile is 0.790 inches at the first fret and 0.880 inches at the 12th fret. It's got a Floyd Rose tremolo, black hardware, and like Eddie's famed 5150 guitars, it only has one pickup. In this case, a Seymour Duncan humbucker that's slanted in the bridge position, similar to some of Ed's Kramer guitars. It's got a single volume knob, again like Eddie's famed Kramer 5150. And finally, it weighs in at about 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Now, if you're a big Van Halen fan or just love monsters or rock, like I said, these are very rare. Now, they show up online every once in a while, so what can you expect to pay for one? I've seen authentic models sold for well over $10,000, depending on condition and whether or not it's signed by Van Halen. One source says that only 20 to 30 were signed by the band, which jives with the examples that I've seen for sale or in the wild. Unsigned models have sold for between $3,000 and $8,000, while I've seen signed versions go for, again, well upwards of $10,000. Now, if you come across one and the seller's asking for anything less than $3,000, take a real good look at it. There are a lot of fakes and parts casters out there, believe it or not. There are even graphic wraps that you can buy to apply to any guitar. But here's how to quickly spot a fake or non-authentic Monsters of Rock guitar. First, the body type is wrong. The authentic models used a Kramer Beretta 2 with the sharper horns. Some fakes will use the earlier Beretta style or even a pacer. Next, the inlays. As I mentioned earlier, the inlay should be a Kramer hockey stick headstock inlay. If you see dots or even shark teeth, it's wrong, and it's fake. And the pickups, well, this is a 2-for-1. The pickups should be an all-black Seymour Duncan humbucker, and they should be slanted like Ed's guitars. I've seen black and white humbuckers, which could be an aftermarket replacement, but in that case, it degrades the collector's value. And I've seen pickups that were parallel with the bridge, and if that's the case, again, probably not real. Sure, there might be a few other differences, but those are the easy to spot ones. So let's get the story behind this fabulous piece of rock history. The first Monsters of Rock show stomped on audiences on August 16, 1980 at Castle Donington outside of London, England. The only thing bigger than this tour in the 1980s was a cage match between Godzilla and your mama. I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. Tell your mom I said hi. For the last 4 decades, the festival and tour have featured nearly every important rock band from AC/DC to ZZ Top to Anthrax to Whitesnake. Since then, the Monsters of Rock Festival has played dozens of shows in dozens of countries, melting the faces off hundreds of thousands of metal fans. And in summer of 1988, on the heels of their second album, with new lead singer Sammy Hagar, the revamped Van Halen lineup headlined the festival. Guitar legend Eddie Van Halen was, at the time, playing and endorsing Kramer guitars, which seemed to be the axe of choice for 80s rockers and shredders. Ed's Kramer 5150 was used for most of the decade. So, in a stroke of marketing synergy, Kramer guitars produced a limited run of Monsters of Rock branded instruments. It's said that only 50 were made as promotional items given away by local radio stations. Now, if you want to buy one, well, you're in luck, because 5 Star Guitars in Beaverton, Oregon has one for sale on consignment. Now, to be clear, this is a collector's item. You're not going to be gigging with this one unless you want to wipe off the signatures. That's also why we're not playing the guitar in this video. It's signed by the entire 1988 Van Halen lineup. I asked the owner, who has it on consignment, to share the story, but they'd like to remain anonymous. So I'm going to tell you what they told me, and that story will be reenacted by this animation program that I got a free trial for. Here's a story from the owner in their own words. I lived in multiple places near and around St. Louis from 1985 to 1989. In 1988, the Monsters of Rock tour stopped in Kansas City. They skipped St. Louis. The local rock station sold bus tickets to and from the show, and KC95, the rock station in St. Louis, gave away tickets and bus tickets to the show, and they did a drawing to meet the band and win the guitar. I, sadly, did not win. Plus, I was too young to ride the bus, being just 16 at the time. I went to the show with an older sibling driving me and some friends. What a day and night. I was told days after the show about the person who won the guitar and got to meet the band. It took a decent amount of detective work to get the phone number of the winner, and this was before the internet, so it was hard. Going to the local Music Land record store and asking if they knew the winner, the manager of the store was backstage at the show and gave me some clues. I left him with my number and info. Almost a year later, the winner called me and I was able to connect with the winner and not only see the guitar, but make an offer on it. About a month later, I got a call with a counteroffer that required me to clear out my savings and sell a PV Classic 212 amp. Luckily, I sold the amp based on gross weight. I was told Kramer made 50 of these guitars, and about 25 to 30 were signed by the band. This guitar has lived with my private collection ever since. It also comes with the original Kramer hardshell case, a vintage Monsters of Rock tour t-shirt, and a copy of the IRS 1099 form from the radio station that awarded it back in 1988. It's got a couple of small nicks and dings, otherwise it's in immaculate condition. Now, if you're itching to add this to your collection, you can contact 5 Star Guitars in the link in the show notes or check out their Reverb store. Now, before we wrap up, I think I legally have to say this. This episode was not paid for or sponsored by anyone other than me. Now, I know it seems like an ad for 5 Star Guitars to sell this instrument, but the reality is I reached out to them about doing this because I had to get permission from 5 Star Guitars and the owner of the guitar because I wanted to use the Monsters of Rock instrument to go with the Halloween theme of the episode, since it's dropping on Halloween. Now, they didn't pay me, they didn't give me anything, I didn't ask them to. I called them up and said, hey, I'd like to do this, and they said, cool. I mean, it was a bit more involved than that, so it seems like there should be an includes paid promotion label up there. Trust me, I didn't get a dime to do this. Other than the opportunity to do the episode, I'd like to think I made some friends at 5 Star Guitars. But that's all I got. That's it. And if you've seen any of the other episodes of this show, you know that I typically tell you where you can buy whatever instrument I'm featuring in that episode. In this case, there's only one available as of the recording of this video. There it is, a very special Halloween episode of The Story Behind the Strings. Thanks for watching, and I hope you liked it. Have you seen one of these in person? Did you have one? Did you even know they existed? What's the scariest guitar you've owned? And what scary guitar should I feature next Halloween? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to support the show, you can join us on Patreon and become a roadie, a guitar tech, or a hired gun. You'll get cool swag, exclusive access, and you get to suggest a guitar for me to go behind the strings of. But if you want to help, but don't have any extra cash, help grow the show by sharing it with your friends, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell icon to be notified when I drop a new episode, which is, again, every other Tuesday. It's free and it's easy. Please follow me on all the places, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. I should probably mention my podcast, The Scary Funny Show, which is stand-up comedians talking about haunted or spooky stuff, and it's available on all the podcast places. My stand-up comedy dates are on my website, ThomTran.com. I'm going to be in Florida the week of Veterans Day doing a lot of shows this year, and then I'll be opening for my buddy Brad Williams in Winnipeg and Calgary, Canada towards the end of November. I'm working on a new musical comedy album, so you can get all the info on my website. Links to everything are in the show notes. As always, thanks for watching, and let the strings tell your story. Now, I asked the owner who has it on consignment to share the story, but they'd like to remain anonymous. So I'm going to tell you what they told me, and that story is going to be reenacted using these action figures, which are definitely my nephew's and not mine. So let me tell you what they told me. So I'm going to tell you what they told me, and that story will be reenacted using unrelated footage from Dragon Ball Z, G.I. Joe, and the Generation 1 Transformer cartoons.